Live from Washington to talk more about this now is Texas Republican Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison. Thanks for being with us this morning. It's great to talk to you, Senator.
Thank you, Karen.
So you had 3 votes, you had 3 defeats, and now Republicans cleared the way for this to go out to the floor for debate. Is there anything that changed in the substance of the bill that cleared the way to move forward?
Well, yes, the biggest part of the bill that we were concerned about was the too big to fail language. We want to stop too big to fail, meaning we don't want any more taxpayer bailouts, and the language was not clear, and we needed to close some loopholes, and we did get the assurance that those loopholes would be closed. So now we're going to try to work on the other parts of the bill that we think still need a lot of work to protect our community banks, but we can go forward.
Senator, can we get you to go into a little bit of detail here, because we've had over the last couple of weeks Democrats saying, no, this ends too big to fail, Republicans saying, no, it doesn't end too big to fail. What were the loopholes that you're concerned about? What was the agreement last night that does ensure that this ends too big to fail?
Well, for one thing, there was a $50 billion fund that was going to indicate that that would be the fallback. But then, as we know, these financial institutions were much more in jeopardy than $50 billion. So that indicated that the taxpayers were going to have to come in and make up the rest. We stopped that, and we got that assurance. In addition, we want these firms to be going into bankruptcy and liquidated if they are in a failing position, not allowed to continue to go forward, again, with the indication that there would be a taxpayer fallback. These are things that had to be tightened up, and we did get the assurance that that would happen. Now, going forward, though, we still have a really bifurcated system, with the 50 billion and above banks being under the supervision of the Fed and everybody else not. We don't like that either, and I'm hoping that we can have a level playing field with our community banks.
Is what you're talking about right now the Consumer Protection Agency? Because Republicans have an issue with that, fighting this element of the bill, arguing that some small business owners could be adversely affected. Explain that.
We're very concerned about this new consumer agency that really is going to add a lot of regulatory burden to the community banks that already are regulated. We don't need another agency with another big government bureaucracy for the community banks. We do need that for the non-bank institutions. That's where the real problem is. That's where all these derivatives and the reverse swaps and all of the fancy stuff that caused this whole meltdown happened. That's where we need to focus, not overburdening our community banks, which then overburdens our small businesses, but instead going for the non-bank financial institutions that cause this problem. And that is another area that we must address in this bill.
Senator, let me come back, if I could, to this $50 billion resolution fund. We heard from Senator Richard Shelby that the Democrats likely will drop that. That was a fund that was going to be paid for by taxing financial institutions to unwind them should one get in trouble, become too big to fail. But with that set aside, if a financial institution gets in trouble, who pays for the bailout?
Well, they need to go into liquidation. We cannot have taxpayers funding these bailouts, because that indicates that it's a spigot that doesn't get turned off.
But this wasn't taxpayers. That's the. I mean, I understand that there was a lot of back and forth about this $50 billion, but it would have been the banks paying into it, correct?
Yes, and that $50 billion would have been the banks, but $50 billion was a drop in the bucket compared to the financial crisis that we saw. As you know, it was $350 billion, and then another $350 billion that was allocated for the bailout last year, and that can't happen again. That caused a spiral that is part of the problem that we now have with this rising debt in our country, that is going to have another major impact on our economy in the adverse.
But if you get rid of that fund, again, you say, well, a firm that was failing would have to go into liquidation. But can you see that there might be a possibility where there is a firm similar to AIG that can't go into liquidation because of all the holdings and the impact that that would have, and it would leave the door open still to a taxpayer-funded bailout?
Well, as long as you have that opening, you are going to have risk that is going to be driven by thinking that you're going to have this backup. You've got to stop the ability for any big financial institution to think that the taxpayers will fund the risk, so go ahead and have that reverse swap or that derivative, or say in some cases where we're seeing with Goldman Sachs, they were running these derivatives where they were selling on one side and buying on the other with their clients, and that's not what is going to provide the steady hand at the wheel that we need in our economy, and the transparency. We need transparency. So having the $50 billion fund that would be the cushion indicates that if that runs out, then the taxpayers are there. Also, not allowing any financial institution under $50 billion to be supervised by the Fed creates an unlevel playing field, because the over 50 billion are going to have better interest rates, better customer confidence, and that's not fair either. So we need to fix both of those parts of the bill.
I want to ask you on a different topic, the issue of immigration. Arizona, of course, has been the center of nationwide controversy over its new law requiring police to question people that they suspect may be in the country illegally. Now, right now, there's a Texas lawmaker that's considering a similar measure in your home state of Texas. Would you support that type of legislation?
Well, I think that what the Arizona law is doing is saying the federal government's not doing its job, and therefore we are going to step in. In many instances in Texas, we are having to beef up the border area security. We're having to pay for extra judges and extra judiciary. It's not fair. It's not a fair burden on these border states to have to deal with issues that the federal government should do. That's why we're calling on President Obama to secure our border. We've got violence now. It's not just illegal immigration. It's violence. It's drug cartels that are coming across and affecting America and American citizens. And that's the frustration that is in the border states. How we deal with it has to be very even-handed and balanced, but we must secure our borders.
Right, but would you support a law like this in your state, in Texas, the one that is in Arizona now?
Well, I don't know what exactly is in the Arizona law, but I know that we have the capability for the police departments and the sheriff's departments to voluntarily be able to apprehend illegal immigrants and turn them over to the proper federal authorities. But they need help from the federal government to do its job so that there will not have to be this state and local expense that's really not fair.
All right, Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.